Working with paper forms, you might encounter questions that aren't always as easily translatable to their digital counterparts. This is especially the case when it comes to table questions. So here in this form, question number 13 is a typical table question. These labels on the outside of the table actually refer to the different cells within the table. So here, for example, this cell refers to the average patient waiting time for A and C. So how do we translate this to CommCare? Well, we do it by using question groups and keeping a fixed structure. And as you'll see, we'll be using some handy little tricks such as copy-pasting, which makes creating these types of table questions a lot quicker than you might think. Once again, I'm just going to collapse all of my questions, open up the Access to Health question group, and we'll start here at the categorical score for the health facility. Returning back to our paper form, let's look at the structure. So first of all, the overall question is how many days per week and or hours per day are the following services provided? So this is going to be our overarching question group because all of these questions relate to this one question. So that's easy. Again, we start here, we add a question group, paste. Oh, I didn't copy that properly. Great. So how many days per week and or hours per day are the following? Okay, so again, my question ID hasn't quite come out how I wanted to, so I'm just going to copy all of this except for the question mark, paste, and I'm just going to delete this capital to keep it consistent. I'm going to remove this special character and just make it a space and add a little space here. Great, so this is my overarching question group. Now within the question, we have a number of variables here. So OPD, ANC, safe deliveries. And then for each of these items, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. And so obviously for the first one, for OPD, we don't have the 24-hour care question, but we do have it for the rest. So let's start by building out this OPD question. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another question group, and this time not just a regular group, but actually a question list, because I want all of these 4, or in the case of OPD, 2 questions to show on the enumerator or mobile worker screen. So let's do that. Let's add a group question and a question list. And so we're going to call this group OPD. And then first thing I want to display is a label. So I want kind of the title of the screen to read, again, OPD. And then as the question ID, because we're going to copy paste these, I will just say, I will call this label. Great. So we know it's about OPD. Then we have this first question, which is essentially this days per week. Days per week, services provided, right? So we can just write that out. And it's a number question. And actually, so let's add a number. We could call it days per week that services provided. And again, let's add a validation here. So we can either just do the validation again, or what we can do, because we already did the validation here, is we can just simply copy this. So remember, in how many days per week is the facility open, we already added validation that it has to be more or equal than 0 and less or equal than 7. So coming back here, we can simply just paste this into the validation condition. All right, so next question is the 24-hour care, but we're going to skip that for this question. And then we have the average patient waiting time, which again, okay, so this should be, Well, it's not really defined. So we want this actually to be a numeric question, but it should be defined whether or not we're talking about minutes or hours. So let's make this minutes. So average patient waiting time in minutes. And it's another number question. Okay, and here we want to add a very simple validation. So we want this to be equal to or greater than 0. We don't want it to be a negative number. And then the question ID, yeah, comes up automatically. Great. So now there's a nifty little trick that we can do is if we collapse this question list and click it, we can press Control-C. So that's what we see here, copying and pasting questions. These actions are available via the browser's edit menu, and you can also use Control-C and then Control-V for paste. So again, I'm just going to select the OPD question list. I've collapsed it, Control-C and then Control-V. Great, so that's going to create a copy of the code that we have here. Now, this is going to be the second variable, so A and C, antenatal care. So we're just going to change the display text here to A and C. We're going to change the question ID to A and C, and we need to change the label here to A and C. This question ID we can just leave the same, and it's not coming up as an error because this question ID is inside a different question group. So the path would be how many days per week and or hours, etc., 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 dot A and C dot label, right? So whereas this one is OPD dot label. So they're different. And same for these. Because the question path is different, because we put it inside a different question group, we can keep our question ID the exact same as in here. Great. So we do need to add 2 questions. We need to add this 24-hour care. So this is actually one question, and then this is another question. So our first question is, is 24-hour care available? Yes, no, which is a multiple choice question. So is 24-hour care available? And we'll make it required. And then a simple yes and no. And then our next question is the number of hours that it's available. So how many hours per day is the service provided? So that's going to be a numeric question. And we won't make this required because it's a numeric question, but we will add a display condition because this should only display if 24-hour care isn't available. And we want a validation condition because this, how many hours a day is the service provided, should be greater than or equal to 0. So notice that validation questions, or validation expressions, we almost always reference the question itself. It's very rare that you would create a validation condition based on a different question, unless, for example, you want to display a label and you only display it if a certain validation criterion hasn't been met in a previous question, and so you cannot go past that message. And hopefully we'll have an example of that at a later stage. Great, so now we have all of our 4 questions, plus the label indicating what this group is. So the label, days per week, is 24-hour care available, how many hours a day is the service provided, and average patient waiting time in minutes. So again, I'm just going to collapse. I'm going to select A and C. I'm going to press Control-C, Control-V, and it's going to create a copy of the question. And now all I have to do is just select this, So save deliveries, minus whatever's in parentheses, and in the label, save deliveries. And then I'm done. And now I can just keep doing this for all of the other variables. So I just do that quickly. And again, I hope you are, joining us by, trying to replicate what we're doing in these videos yourself, because it's the best way to learn. So, take your time, pause the video, and try this yourself. So we have supplementary feeding here. Change that to OR. Change the label, collapse, copy paste. And our final one. Okay, great. Now that we have all of them, we still need to add our other option. So the other variable is actually just going to be the same as the others, except we're going to add one more question, namely the specify question. So again, I'm just going to copy paste. I'm going to call this other. And here as well. And then here, I'm just going to add one more question. And we're just going to call it specify other. And we're going to make it required. Okay, so what happens now if a health facility doesn't have one of these departments? Well, we don't want to force our mobile workers to go through each and every one of them. We want them to be able to just skip them quickly. In fact, we don't even want them to appear if they don't have any one of these departments. So how do we do that? Is we just add another question in right before our group question. And we'll make it a checkbox question. And we'll call it, which of the following departments does the health facility have? And we'll make it required. And then we'll add all the choices. So we have OPD. So I just went ahead and fast forwarded so that all the options are here. And all we have to do now is for each of our lists, our question lists, we can define the display condition. So again, this is another really great reason to use groups and to have a very good structure to your CommCare forms, because the display condition on the question group applies to all of the questions within that group. So this is really great and saves us a lot of time. So I'm going to enter, drag this question in here and then OPD, save. And I'm going to do the same for A and C. So again, when only display A and C, when which of the following departments does the health facility have, has the selected value A and C. And again, notice how this automatically goes to has selected value rather than is equal to. If we were to choose is equal to here, and we select more than one choice, it's not going to show any of them. So we always should have has selected value. So again, I've just fast forwarded and put in all the different display conditions. All that's left to do now is to publish our application and test it in BlueStacks again. So I'll see you there. Okay, so once in BlueStacks, we see that we need to select the different departments that the health facility has. So if I try to go ahead without selecting any, it won't let me. And this is also because at a minimum, a health facility is going to have an outpatient department, right? So we should definitely select this, and then let's select a few others. And there we go, that's our OPD. And actually, let's select other as well to see if that's working properly. So OPD, days per week, if I type in 8, okay, this could be 30 minutes. This shouldn't work. Excellent. Okay, so 4. So continuing on to save deliveries, enter a number. If we enter yes, then our extra question on how many hours it's available shouldn't pop up. But if we select no, it should. And it's not. So there is a problem with the code that we entered for our display condition. Okay, so let's go back and see what the issue is. So we have, scrolling down, we have our OPD here, then A and C, right? Okay, so that looks fine. It's 24-hour care available. And now, how many hours a day is the service provided? If we hover over this question, we can see what is the question path. So it's access to healthcare, access to health. That's the overarching, section. Then how many days per week and/or hours per day are the following services provided? Then A and C, and then is 24-hour care available? And so now, if we go to save delivery and we select the same question, we can see here that it's still referencing the path towards A and C. And so this is an issue, and this is something you need to be very careful with when copy-pasting questions. And again, it shows why you need to always test after creating a section. And it shows us that, hey, the question path didn't update. So all of these display conditions are going to be wrong, and we just need to replace this question. So I'm going to select the question and then drag in the correct one. So same for IMCI. Here, this is not the correct question because it's still referencing A and C. I want the is 24-hour care available in IMCI. Same for this one. And finally, other. Okay, great. So I'm going to save and publish again, and let's go for take 2 of our test. Okay, so testing round 2. Let's again select OPD, save deliveries, and other. Say 5 and 32. Just enter any old information. Then days per week that the service is provided. Let's say 5 again. If we select yes, nothing should show up. If we select no, how many hours a day is the service provided should show up. That's great. So let's try with our validation. Let's say 33. And then 23. Aha, the response is invalid now. So let's try 4. Okay, and now it works. And here in our other, first we need to specify other. So you enter anything. It should be service. And it seems to work.